Thanks again, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to join this webinar. My name is Dominic, and I work with Amazon's Selling Partner App Store. As you may know, the App Store is a one-stop shop for sellers to discover and enable more than 2,500 trusted apps to help you grow and manage your businesses. We are continuing our webinar series today with a presentation from our software partner, A2X, on how to avoid costly e-commerce accounting pitfalls. Throughout the session, we encourage you to submit your questions through the questions tool on GoToWebinar, and we will be answering them in a live Q&A session following the presentation. So without further ado, I now give the floor to Amy.
Hi everyone. So as Dom said, today I will be talking to you about how to avoid costly Amazon accounting pitfalls with A2X. So it's a little bit of an intro. I'm Amy, Product Marketing Manager at A2X. A little bit about me. So I've been at A2X for almost 3 years. I'm based in New Zealand, so hopefully my accent is distinguishable enough. But A2X is actually a global company, so we have team members based all around the world. So what is A2X? A2X is an e-commerce accounting app that helps businesses, accountants, and bookkeepers automatically reconcile their Amazon settlements from their settlements from the Amazon Marketplace and their accounting software. So as I can imagine, as an Amazon seller, you probably didn't get into business to spend a lot of time doing your accounting. You may not have even given it much thought when you were getting started, or maybe you're one of the people that are all over it. So what I thought I'd do is just start by running a poll to get a bit of a gauge of where people are at. So if you can pop that poll up now, Dom. Cool. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we can see the results there. So that's, to be honest, quite reflective of what we see at A2X. So the majority there doing your own accounting. Some people not doing any Amazon accounting. We see that all the time. And don't worry, we can help with that. And then a bunch also with a general bookkeeper. And then a small percentage that's already with a specialized accounting bookkeeping firm for e-commerce. So that's awesome. Hopefully this presentation will be able to give all of you something to take away. So to start the presentation, I thought I'd start by giving a little bit of context as to why your numbers are so important and why they deserve some attention. So a common misconception is that if you have more money coming into your bank account than going out, your business is growing. But did you know that 32% of e-commerce businesses fail because they run out of cash? 9% fail because of cost and pricing imbalances, and many others fail because they try to scale too quickly. Profitable Amazon businesses know their numbers inside and out, and they use them to successfully grow their business. Sure, there are businesses that grow rapidly overnight, but for businesses to survive, they need numbers that they can rely on. So one of the scary things is most of these businesses don't even see the crisis coming because they don't know their numbers. So why don't they know their numbers? Because accounting for Amazon and other sales channels in QuickBooks or Xero is actually really complicated. So why is it so complicated? There's actually a bunch of reasons why Amazon accounting can be quite complicated, but I've sort of summarized into 3 key areas here. So the first one is their settlement period. So as you all know, Amazon sellers are paid every 2 weeks. So this means your settlement will cover a 2-week period, and that can often cross over the month end. So it can be very difficult to try and work out what transactions occurred in which month. So for example, if I received a payment recently, it might have covered transactions from both December and January. It's very important to split out these transactions into the period to which they occur. It's important for not only month-end reporting, and also it's quite important for year-end reporting too. The next one is transaction types. So there are hundreds of different transaction types, and these actually change all the time. So obviously your deposit is going to include sales, but there's also things like adjustments, commissions, reimbursements, returns, a bunch of different fee types, all sorts can go into that settlement. And then there is tax. So this is further complicated both by where you sell and where you're registered. So although Amazon may collect your tax for you under the Marketplace Facilitator legislation, you are responsible for tracking and reporting your tax and correcting any differences. So it also might seem obvious to get all this information from Seller Central, but it can actually be difficult to line up what you're paid with the numbers that you see in Seller Central, unless you're prepared to go through thousands of lines of data in a spreadsheet. And even then, unfortunately, you would have to then manually enter those transactions into your QuickBooks or Xero account. So it's very manual and time consuming and leaves a lot of room for error. So I guess this kind of comes back to the poll a little bit. So if you can't relate, you might have not gotten around to or been ignoring your bookkeeping. If this doesn't sort of relate to you, or you think it's quite easy, there's a high chance that potentially you're doing it wrong or just not accounting for all of the transaction types. And if you're spending hours doing this manually, you need to know that there is a better way. With all of these complications, it's really no wonder why many sellers that we speak to avoid doing their accounting or cut corners. But unfortunately, this does come with some pretty serious risks. So after looking at all of these complications, let's look at the difference between good data and bad data. So here is the difference between what you see in your bank account or settlement statement versus the good data or, I guess, broken down data that A2X would provide. So as you may know, the cash that hits your bank account, so this amount here, does not match the sales that you've done on Amazon. This table on the left shows you what you will see in your bank account as the net deposit from Amazon. So with no visibility, sellers might just code this entire amount to a sales account. That's something that we see all the time and we hear from our accounting partners all the time. So on the right here, with the good data, you see what actually made up this deposit. So we can see here that the sales amount was actually $45,672, not the whole $52,355. So if you'd posted this total amount to your sales account, you'd actually be overstating your income. And by doing that, it's possible you could pay more in tax, and you could also be incorrectly valuing your business. So stating the business is doing more in sales than what it should be. So you can see here that obviously A2X will split out the sales, but we'll also go into far more detail than that. So you can see here that the shipping income has been split out. So this is the shipping income that Amazon has collected on your behalf. And then you also see down here the shipping fees. So the amount that's being spent in shipping. So you get both the money that's being collected and what has been spent on shipping. In many cases, those will balance out to be the same amount, but if there's a balance there, it's important to be tracking that. And those numbers will go through into your profit and loss statement in your accounting software. You can also see that sales tax collected has been split out. So as I mentioned earlier, tax is a really complicated one. So if Amazon is collecting your tax as part of the marketplace facilitator scheme, it will also be remitting your tax. So A2X will track all of that for you. So if you've got tax collected and tax remitted, you'll see those values both included in your entry, and you'll be able to keep track of all of that. Tax will also be split out on any expenses, so that's really useful for deduction. So, for example, if you had tax on gift wrap or on shippings or refunds or anything like that, that can all be split out as well. This seller's actually received some inventory reimbursements. So if there's been damaged or lost stock, Amazon will pay you reimbursements. You can see that total has been included. This counts as income and also needs to be accounted for. You can see that there's fees that have been split out. So A2X can get really granular with your fees. In this case, we've just got the FBA fees here, but we can break down delivery and transport fees, commission and selling fees, all sorts of fees can be broken down. Any rebates or promotions will be split out. You can also see that advertising has been split out, which is a really important one for Amazon sellers to be able to track advertising costs. And then also really importantly with the reserve balance. So if any money has been held back by Amazon, likely to be paid in the next settlement, this will be accounted for in your A2X entry as well. So as you can see, this table on the right here gives you far more information about what happened on Amazon and what the money you've received is. It means you can make far more informed decisions about your business. For example, if you see advertising tracking up and perhaps sales not tracking up to the same degree, that's something you can keep a really close eye on, rather than just making assumptions based on what your income or expenses might be. A good way to think about it is that if a transaction was included in your settlement, then A2X will split it out and identify it for you. This entry also gives you confidence because it will balance. So you can see here, the total amount of the deposit is balanced by all of these numbers. So you know that these numbers are accurate because they're all balancing perfectly to the penny to the amount that has hit your bank account from Amazon. So I guess looking at this number here, the three most common mistakes that we see are recording your net deposits as income. This means that you could be overstating or understating your income, as we saw in the last example. You could be recording sales tax as income, number 2. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, this can lead to some big problems if you're spending money that doesn't belong to you. So I guess if you are recording your whole deposit as income, it's highly likely that you're also recording your tax as income. Another thing to be aware of is that this means that if you're not splitting out that tax, you might actually be calculating tax on a value that has already been taxed. So obviously no one wants to be paying more tax than they need to. So splitting that out is really important. And then the third one is accounting for COGS only as they're purchased, not as they're sold. So A2X can allow you to track your COGS as they're sold. By not doing so, you can actually be kind of undervaluing your business with that inventory. So the reality is, if you're not accounting accurately, you have limited insight into profitability, and it's highly likely you're paying the wrong amount in tax. But the good news is it's not all doom and gloom. This is exactly where A2X comes in. A little bit of background on A2X. We've been working with Amazon sellers, or Amazon sellers have been relying on A2X since 2013 to deliver accurate automated accounting. We've processed over 1.1 billion orders, and we have thousands of 5-star reviews from sellers and their accountants across a range of channels. So how does A2X work? It connects to your Amazon marketplace and pulls in uncategorized sales, fees, refunds, taxes, and more. It also connects to the other channels that you sell on. It will automatically fetch in any new data as it's available. So as you're paid and you get a settlement from A2X, from Amazon rather, that will automatically come into A2X. And also the really good news for those who answered in the poll that haven't been doing their accounting, A2X is able to fetch historical data. So if you need to go back to a certain date, we can most likely help you with that. So once the data is into A2X, A2X will auto-categorize it into accurate summaries that span into the right time period. So you can see here in this example, this was just for 1 month, but if this payout covered multiple months, then A2X would create 2 entries. You can see here, this is very similar to the entry that A2X would create. You can see the value, and you can also see the account. So this is your general ledger account within your accounting software that this value would be posted to. Then it will be sent over to your accounting software. So it can be set up to automatically post and send through to your accounting software, so QuickBooks or Xero. So here the summary will match perfectly to the payouts in your banking screen for one quick reconciliation. So as you can see here, this is an example of a banking screen, and you can see that the A2X summary is matching perfectly. So we've also got a little more data on the next page. So this is actually a real life example, sort of recording within QuickBooks. This is in the banking screen. So you can see here, there's a bunch of deposits that have come through from Amazon.com. And you can see they've also got this little green box here that says one match. You can see that it's a journal entry from A2X. So essentially what's happening here is that QuickBooks has identified that there's a journal entry that has the exact same value as the amount that you're being paid from Amazon. So all you need to do here is click match, and then all of the correct values are going to the correct accounts. So as we saw earlier in the entry, the sales amount will be going to a sales account, the fees will be going to fees. And so this means there's no need for any manual adjustments, any manual entries. It's just literally all taken care of. This also then flows through into your profit and loss statement. So it gives you increased visibility with a detailed profit and loss. So if you're not familiar with this, the profit and loss, or P&L, or sometimes called the income statement, summarizes your sales revenue and your expenses. It usually covers over a specified period. So it might be for the year, or it could be, you can also do it sort of monthly or quarterly for comparison. The profit and loss is really important because it gives you an understanding of how your business is operating and how profitable it is. So the result is automated, accurate e-commerce accounting. I've also just included a screenshot here of the actual A2X interface. So as we've covered, this is how A2X looks. You'll come in, you connect your Amazon store, you connect your QuickBooks, you do Snap, and then you'll be able to see all of the entries here too within A2X. So you can view them here before you send them over to your accounting software and review the entries. So A2X works with the top e-commerce accounting firms around the world. They trust A2X with their clients. I've just included a note here, a quote here from Scott Sharp, formerly Catching Clouds, now at Acuity. He says A2X is the gold standard in e-commerce accounting. So We actually have a bunch of case studies on our website, and I've included a link there that you can go and take a look at. Awesome. So in summary, with A2X, or why A2X? So with A2X, you automate a time-consuming monthly process. You're far more likely to pay the right amount on taxes. You'll know which of your SKUs is the most profitable and which costs you too much money. You know if you're getting a return on your advertising, and you'll get a better view of your financial statements with a far more detailed profit and loss and also a balance sheet. Most importantly, I think you'll have confidence in the accuracy of your books, which, spoiler alert, can lead to a high exit price if you do decide to sell your Amazon business in the future. So A2X is the most accurate option. It provides advanced functionality and tax granularity for accurate accounting. So this is really important if you have specific tax needs that you need to be splitting out, or if there's different transactions that you want to be split out to. It's customizable to your needs. It will also save you time and money, and it will help you get a fair valuation when the time comes. A2X has the largest network of e-commerce accountants and bookkeepers in the A2X partner directory. It is trusted by the leaders in the space. And then finally, A2X has the best support team in the industry. So our support team is focused on your success. I understand e-commerce accounting actually better than most, because a lot of them have launched their own stores or have bookkeeping expertise, and their response time is hours, not days. And if you think of the type of support that you want when you're stuck and you need some help, this is really what A2X provides. And you don't actually have to take my word for it. If you have a look at a lot of the reviews across marketplaces and various review sites, a lot of them make mention of the awesome support team. So when it comes to paying tax, making financial decisions, calculating your margins, or even valuing your business, close enough really isn't good enough. Awesome. And the best thing is you can try A2X for free at a2xaccounting.com. Brilliant. So now we have some time for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. That was really insightful. And as a non-accountant myself, I think that a lot of this can be really complex and confusing. And so I really appreciate the way that you broke it down. And we have a lot of questions streaming in. So there are a few that kind of relate to the pricing around A2X. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on how does the pricing work? What should sellers expect there?
Sure, absolutely. So what I'll do is I'll bring up the pricing on our website. So we have a bunch of different pricing options. So for Amazon sellers, you can come to our website and have a look here. Essentially, our plans start at $19 a month, and it just depends on how many orders you're doing. So the mini plan, hopefully you can still see my screen. The mini plan, it just starts at $19 a month and allows up to 200 orders and just one Amazon merchant ID. So we have a lot of different plans to suit all different types of sellers. So if you're doing a few more orders per month, it just sort of scales as you grow.
Great, thank you. And I imagine this is from the 77% of folks that aren't currently working with a accounting or bookkeeping firm. They want to know, like, where can they even find someone to help them with this? Either starting up A2X or just doing accounting in general. Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, definitely. We work with a lot of different e-commerce accounting firms. We work with a lot of practices that have actually specialized both, but potentially in e-commerce, and might even be specifically focused on Amazon. So can definitely recommend reaching out to those guys. What I'll do, we actually have an awesome section on our website that I'll show you as well. So this is the e-commerce accountant directory. So you can, if you're an Amazon seller, you can sign up with A2X directly, or if you're thinking, I just want some help doing this, then you can come directly to the directory. And we have a bunch of different, criteria down the side. So depending on what you're looking for. So if you wanted an accountant specifically focusing in Amazon, for example, we have a bunch of different accountant firms or bookkeepers that you can reach out to from here. So these users have all demonstrated a lot of expertise in e-commerce, and as we've covered, it's really complicated. So I definitely recommend reaching out to one of these practices.
Awesome, thank you. I have a question here from Dwayne, who says, data pulled by A2X is based on payout and not monthly transactions. So how does that correspond to calendar months and quarters?
Sure. So what we do is we actually connect to the settlement. So it's a file that you may or may not be familiar with, but essentially it's like a big Excel file that you can pull. So what we will do is we'll bring in all of the data into A2X and we'll split it down into the month that it occurred. So actually, since I'm sharing my screen, I might as well just bring up a transaction. So this is the screen that I showed earlier in the presentation, and you can actually see there's a really good example, even though it's quite a small payout. What I might do is find a larger one. Here, great example here. So this is Amazon.com, and you can see the payment period was December and January. So if I click to review this entry, so you can see this settlement period was from the 25th of December to the 4th of January. So what A2X actually does is it breaks down the transactions to when they occurred. So you can see here, this first entry is for December and the second entry is for January. So the beauty of that is that you'll send them both through to your accounting software and they'll both balance to the total that you were paid. But you can see that the transactions, all of these transactions occurred in December and all of the ones below occurred in January. And that means you can run those reports, so you can have monthly profit and losses and monthly reports. So hopefully that covers the question.
I think it does. I have a question here from Amanda. It says, can A2X be backdated to break down all transactions for the previous year to help with 2022 taxes, or will it only start from the time that A2X is purchased?
This is something we get asked all the time. So we can get historical data. So on the pricing plans, all of them will come with a set amount of data. So I think even our smallest plan comes with 3 months worth of historical data. If you wanted more than that, you could just subscribe to a larger plan, pull like 12 months worth, and then you could move down onto a smaller plan if you only had fewer orders. So essentially, yes, we can get all of that data. The one thing that I will mention, because I'm sure our support team would be glad for me mentioning this, is that sometimes Amazon will archive your data. So you bring it in and you start a history fetch, and then if you're not seeing some data, then you can reach out to the team and they'll give you the steps of how you go into your Amazon seller account and unlock that data. But essentially, in a nutshell, yes, we can get that data for you, and it should be relatively easy and painless.
Yeah, there was another question here about how far back can A2X pull the data? It sounds like it's not so much what you can do, but what Amazon is able to offer you. So maybe there's, do you have any other thoughts there, or is it just basically how to reach out and get that data from Amazon?
It generally depends on the account. So in most cases, we can get all of that historical data, provided it's not archived. And even if it is archived, we can give you instructions on how you go in and unlock those. So I would love to say we can go back as far as you started on Amazon. If there's any complications, we'll work with you through that. But like 9 times out of 10, we can get all of that data for you. The only thing would be just finding a plan that includes all of that. So if you needed like 5 years worth of data, you might need to move on to one of the plans that comes with unlimited history. But yeah, and as I mentioned, the support team's awesome. So it's not coming up on my screen, but usually there's this little small pop-up in the bottom corner, and you can just chat to the team and start getting the history that you need.
Thank you. I have a few questions here from Olga and others about can A2X be integrated to inventory management systems, to figure out how both quantities and money are moved?
Totally. This is something we get asked about all the time, actually, because obviously inventory is a massive part of any e-commerce business. So what A2X will do is we can create a cost of goods sold entry. So most times this would be used by someone that's not using an inventory system. So there might just be a smaller seller. I'm not sure. Yeah, so we've actually got an example here. So what A2X will do, it will identify all of the different SKUs that are sold on Amazon, and then you can upload a cost price. And what A2X will do is it'll post the total value. So $390 would be posted. And the idea of that is that you'd have your asset account, which the total value of your inventory is sitting in, and then it would be reduced by the 390. If it's a larger seller and they're using an inventory management system, we work really well alongside a lot of them. The key thing is just working out which data they are posting to your QuickBooks. So if you have it connected and it's posting sales data, for example, we can't usually recommend that you set up your inventory system and then see what data they're posting. The reason you would need A2X alongside it is because they're probably only capturing some of the picture. So they might be doing sales and refunds, but it's highly likely they won't be doing all of the fees down to the detail that A2X will do. So what we'd do is you'd get set up with your inventory system, and then we can work with you to say, okay, the inventory system is posting across the sales. What we're going to do is either remove that line from the entry or post the A2X sales portion to a clearing account so that you're not duplicating the sale. So in a nutshell, yes, we can work with inventory systems, and many of our larger sellers, and actually a lot of our accounting firms do as well. We just need to make sure we get the configuration right so that you're getting both up-to-date, awesome inventory numbers from the inventory system and accurate financials that reconcile from A2X.
Wonderful. You mentioned QuickBooks. There are a lot of questions on here about how that relationship works. I'd be curious if you could just talk a little bit more about that connection.
Sure. So in your A2X account, you'll come in and you'll connect both your Amazon and then you'll connect your QuickBooks. Essentially, all you do is, this one's already connected, but all you do is and you can do this in a trial account to see how it works. The one thing I always stress at this point is by connecting your QuickBooks to A2X, nothing changes. So until you're ready to start sending across data, nothing's going to change. So it's very safe to come in, and the same with Amazon, to connect your Amazon account, connect your QuickBooks. From there, we can see your general ledger or your chart of accounts. So without kind of wanting to go into sort of too much complication, what you'll do is A2X will be able to see all of your ledger accounts within your QuickBooks, or we can actually create the accounts for you. So the two scenarios would be, if you've already been doing some e-commerce accounting and you have all the ledger accounts set up in your QuickBooks that you want to keep using, you come into A2X, and in the accounts and tax mapping page, you just select from a drop down, okay, I want my sales to go to my Amazon sales account. If you're brand new and you don't have any accounts within your QuickBooks, then you can actually have A2X create the accounts that you need. So you can come in, you connect your Amazon, connect your QuickBooks, and then your accounts and tax mapping page, essentially you just select the option, you get asked a few questions, and then you just select the option, and A2X will create all of the accounts that you need. So you'll get a sales, a reimbursements, a shipping, a fees, all of those accounts will be created in your QuickBooks, and they're also the right type. So they'll be income accounts or current asset accounts. So that part is really nice if you are doing it on your own, because it'll be taken care of. We always recommend that you do get it checked by an accountant to make sure that it's right for your setup. But yeah, that's, I guess, the setup. And then how the relationship works on an ongoing basis. You can have, or how the connection works, I guess, on an ongoing basis. You can have A2X automatically post. So what that means is every time you're paid from Amazon, one of these entries will be created and it will automatically be sent over to your QuickBooks. Depending on your setup, you can either have it as a draft or as a live journal entry. And then from there, literally, you wouldn't even need to log into A2X. You could just go into your QuickBooks and you'd see the entry. And that's where you'd see that banking screen that I showed you. You'd go into your banking screen, you'd see the money from Amazon, you'd see the entry from QuickBooks, and then you just click match, and everything's taken care of, posted to the correct accounts, reconciling.
Great. And we have a few questions here kind of in the same vein of, when you're mentioning QuickBooks, is this, enterprise QuickBooks? Is it desktop QuickBooks? Is it just QuickBooks Online? Is it all of the above?
Very good question. So we predominantly with QuickBooks Online, we can work, if sellers are using QuickBooks Desktop, we do have an option. You can actually see here, well, my screen might be a bit small, but see if I can zoom in. You can actually see here that there's an export button. So if you're on QuickBooks Desktop, you can, the process works exactly the same. You just would need to export the file and then upload it into QuickBooks Desktop. And we do have settings that let you choose the format. So I think it's like an IIF file or something for QuickBooks Desktop. So that is doable. QuickBooks Online is completely seamless and easy. The only consideration with the type of QuickBooks Online subscription you might need would be, it would work completely fine with the basic plan, but if you're selling in multiple countries, so if you needed multi-currency, you might need a higher level of QuickBooks subscription. That's just something to maybe chat to your accountant about. But yeah, otherwise QuickBooks Online. I don't think we work with QuickBooks Enterprise unless you could do the export method. So if you, depending on the format that you needed, that is possible. And I will also mention we do work with Xero as well, exact same process, and also Sage as well, but not Sage Intact, the Sage business card accounting software. So yeah, lots of options.
And you mentioned international marketplaces, which is a perfect segue for a few questions here. Roddy wants to know, does it calculate taxes and fees for international marketplaces?
Yeah, so you can see here that this one, well, it's North America still, but you can see that Amazon Canada is split out and Amazon.com has been split out. So what will happen if you have multiple marketplaces? A2X will connect to a region. So you can see here that this one's connected to North America. We have a lot of sellers in Europe, so they would have a EU connection, and that would bring in all of their sales on the UK marketplace, the German, the French, all of those different marketplaces would all come through into the same account. With North America, A2X can do the tax mapping for you, so it can suggest the tax rates. With the European countries, some of the tax will likely be split out for you, and the VAT will be done for you on the UK account. The only thing is that I don't know whether the tax rates would be applied if you were like a specifically French seller. And the reason for that is because we do tax rates that are, I think, English based. So in a nutshell, yes, the different marketplaces will be there. Yes, the tax will be split out. For the UK and majority of marketplaces, A2X can recommend a tax rate for you. It would just be for any other marketplace, you might need to select which tax rate should be applied to those transactions.
Great. And in addition to the tax rates, how does A2X work with international currencies? For example, if a seller is selling in multiple marketplaces, can they all use the same account, or do they need a different account for their Canada marketplace, their Mexico marketplace, their US marketplace, and elsewhere?
Awesome. So these are awesome questions. The currency conversion is actually done in your accounting software. This one, for example, there's payments here that are likely from in Canadian dollars and also in US dollars. So what will happen is A2X will bring it through in the currency, the home currency. So for example, if this was a European, you might see euros and you might also see pounds. Then what will happen is you will send it over to your accounting software, and provided you have the multi-currency turned on, if you have a bank account that's set up, like if you're getting paid into a European bank account that has euros, and you've also got a UK bank account, all of that conversion is taken care of in the QuickBooks or Xero side, and it should be able to identify that the match is there and you can connect them all up. So I guess multi-currency, if you're selling in multiple currencies, that's not a problem. You won't need multiple, well, you would need a A2X connection for every region. So if you're selling in Europe and in North America, you'd need 2 connections, but the setup is relatively the same. And then, yeah, the currency conversion would be taken care of. Also too, if you're selling on, the same sort of applies if you have like a website, for example, it will bring it in its home currency. And then like if you had a connection, an A2X for QuickBooks connection, for example, yeah, the same principle applies. The currency is brought in, the currency that it was sold in, and the conversion happens in the accounting software.
Great. I have a question here from Omer. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. How does A2X record the inventory cost of returned products?
So you'll see a returns line in your, so what it will do is the total value. So if there's a returns from Amazon, we'll take that value from Amazon and it will be included in your entry. The other thing to keep in mind is if we do, I think returns is taken care of in the COGS entry as well, but I can confirm that. So if you're looking at like stock levels, for example, that would need to be managed by a different system. A2X would look at the value rather than like the units or the SKUs. But there are ways that you can do that. And if you're getting to that level of granularity, it's probably worth talking to one of our accounting partners as well, because they can help you either just with the setup to make sure it's all working as it should be, or they can provide you with some ongoing sort of support on managing that.
Great. Owen here has a question about, will A2X tell me the value of remaining inventory at Amazon, or is it only the cost of goods sold? So is it basically the cost of unsold inventory versus cost of goods sold? If you could maybe touch on that a little bit.
Sure. So the COGS feature that we have is, I guess, like I said, it's used kind of on the smaller end. So what the whole idea there is that you would purchase your COGS, you'd put it in an inventory asset account, and then it just reduces that. So that's kind of as far as it goes. So we wouldn't provide, as far as I'm aware, like up-to-date updates on your information, on your value of your stock at Amazon. In saying that though, I know that some of our partners have advanced settings within A2X to manage that, and they go into a lot more detail. So I know a big one for Amazon sellers is like inventory in transit. So if you've shipped it to Amazon and it's in transit, they can be accounted for. And then if there's breakages or returns, Yeah, if you're getting into that level of detail, I'd definitely recommend talking to one of our accounting partners. They would be able to provide you with a lot more detail around that. You wouldn't get that necessarily directly in the A2X interface, but that information is available, I think, if you go through one of those guys.
Great. I have a question here from Ali about, can the VAT, value-added tax, be added on retrospectively? So if a company registers for 6 months after the transaction, can A2X work out the VAT historically?
Yes, it can, because I'll go to the accounts and tax mapping page. It might actually be turned off on this screen. Essentially what will happen, this one's all been, because this is a US account and it's going through QuickBooks, the tax is just taken through as a lump sum and put to a liability account. Whereas in the UK, if you're using Xero, for example, then tax will need to be calculated on the sales amount. So what will happen is you can come in here and say, for example, there'll be a line that says sales, and then you can choose a tax or a VAT rate. So you can select that and it will be calculated. The one thing to keep in mind is that these mappings will be applicable from today. If I said, okay, I need a 20% VAT rate on all of my sales and then updated my data, that will be applied to all of my transactions. So yes, that could apply. If you wanted the VAT to be calculated on all of those transactions, then we could absolutely do that. If you wanted it from like a certain date, so you said, okay, up until the 1st of January, I wasn't charging any VAT. So any like November or December, for example, those don't need VAT, but then from this date I do. That would also be doable. You just need to map twice. So you'd come in, you'd do the mapping, send just the first amount of entries over, and then you'd do the remapping and send the January. Again, I would definitely stress talking to one of our accounting partners. We've got some awesome ones in the UK as well that specialise in the complicated VAT on e-commerce transactions. So yeah, can't recommend them highly enough. And also, I guess the benefit, like if you're just wanting the setup, they can probably just go through it with you, get all that historical data done, and then like going forward, you might not need a lot of input, but at least you get that confidence that it's accurate if someone's helped you go through it.
Great. I have a question here from David. Does A2X record order level accounting so that each order and invoice is recorded on an individual basis, or is it batched by reconciliation file?
It's batched. So the reason that we don't do individual orders is because it would create a lot of entries in your accounting system. So if you're doing 100 orders per month, for example, it would create 100 entries into your accounting system. Most of the accounting systems have a limitation. So I think from memory, I think Xero allows up to 1,000 invoices, and QuickBooks probably has a similar restriction. The other thing with that is that it's really difficult to link it to the payment, because what you'd be doing is you're getting paid for all of those 100 orders in one batch. So you'd be trying to drag in all of these 100 entries in your accounting software to this one deposit. So that's why A2X does a summary entry. It's also best from an accounting best practice perspective too. But we will create one summary entry every time you're paid that will cover all of the sales and transactions that were included in that period. So yeah, we do batch payments, not individual entries.
Great. I have a question here from Rhett. It says, you mentioned that A2X integrates with Sage accounting software. They use Sage 100. Would A2X work for them?
So I think Sage 100 might be a desktop product. So, and if not, definitely correct me. We work with Sage Cloud Accounting, which I think used to have a different name. So essentially we work with the basic cloud accounting software with Sage. That's a direct integration. However, if you're on Sage Desktop or you're on a Sage product that we don't have a direct integration with, it's possible that the manual export method could work. So you might be able to do, it might sound like the manual export method is, I should probably use better terminology, just like a non-direct integration perhaps, because it does still save you so much time, and that it creates the entry for you. Everything's reconciled. The only part that's manual is that you have to just export the data and upload it. So it will still save you a lot of time. So if you go to the A2X support center, it will tell you the exact ones that we integrate with. Or if not, you can just reach out to our support team on the website and say, hey, I'm on Sage 100. Can I use the export method? What are my options?
Got it. But this is, again, about other currencies. And so if you're selling in multiple countries, will A2X prepare the report for all of those countries, or will it convert all the amounts to, say, USD and break it down that way?
So it will create, I wonder if I can find a UK account because that will probably help. Sorry, I'm connected to a lot of different accounts. What you'll see here, as you can see, A2X is bringing in, oh, this is all in euros. Oh, there's one that's pounds as well. But essentially what will happen is A2X will bring in the entry into A2X in the currency that it was sold in. So if it was sold in euros, for example, it's going to come into A2X in euros. And then if it's in pounds, it's in pounds. If it's Canadian dollars, it will come in Canadian dollars. If it's in USD, obviously, it will come in USD. So then what happens is we send our entry over to QuickBooks, and the currency conversion happens there. So all of the data is always going to be in the home currency. And then what happens with it beyond that will happen in QuickBooks. So if you're getting paid in pounds and your entry from A2X is in pounds, that's really nice and seamless. That will connect. If there's a currency conversion that needs to happen, then that can also happen within your accounting software. I think they've got a process where they take the currency for the day or they figure it out. The other thing to keep in mind is that some people will use a currency conversion tool. So and that happens outside of your accounting software. So for example, if you're using like a TransferWise or OFX, and you're getting paid into that, say in euros, and then that's converting that and paying you in pounds, then there is also a workaround for that. There are a few more steps, but we have a really good support article that explains how you do that. But essentially, you can still link it back to that payment. So I guess regardless of what currency you're getting paid in, or provided you have the multi-currency option in your accounting software, and you're prepared to work with us, I'm sure we'll be able to find a solution.
Well, I know we're quickly out of time, but Amy, again, just wanted to give you a sincere thanks for your great presentation today, and also answering all of the thoughtful questions from our sellers. I enjoyed hearing from you, and I know that all of them did as well.